What's up, everybody? This is a video about the 4th of July and everything that is behind it all, and the history and the hypocrisy of it. And but first, let me just tell you what it really means. The 4th of July is a celebration of the anniversary of the Declaration of Independence that our founding fathers put together. And they basically said we're independent and we're free of tyranny and oppression from Great Britain. And this happened in July. This happened in the year 1776. So, I thought about this the other day. I was like, 1776, and the Declaration of Independence, and what our country basically stands for is liberty and justice for all. But back in 1776, who really got that freedom? Who really was unburdened and set free from oppression? And I started digging and research on it. It was only a select group of people. And not only it was just white people, it was white people that could vote, which were, back in those times, white men that owned property and that were a certain age. Now, that means white women couldn't vote, and they didn't have their rights. And that also meant that the same day, our founding fathers, men that stood for freedom and equality and justice, they had their slaves go to work that day, because the slaves weren't on equal terms to our founding fathers back then. And that just made me think, who is this holiday really for? And we see the thought process of inequality up until this day, whether you look on the news, on social media, with the police brutality, the differences in convictions, the unequal pay, even between the genders. Like, it's everywhere, because our foundations is flawed, whether you like to hear it or not. And just as a disclaimer, I love our country and I'm thankful to be born in America, but all I know is we could do a lot better, and we should be better than our founding fathers, and we should be better than we were yesterday, because there's a lot of hypocrisy and injustice still going on that we need to fix. But we have to take responsibility. And I've been digging in the Word too on how it's wrong. It even says with the founding fathers being free from Britain, but them still owning slaves and thinking that other people are below them. And this is our country as a whole. It wasn't just them. It even says in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15, you shall not do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your response. That means everybody's equal, because that's how we're seeing in the eyes of God. So we have to judge and make decisions based off that, not how much money we have, not where we're at, not the color of our skin. And it relates to back then, because slaves didn't have any money and they didn't have no power, so they were poor. And then the whites, they had more money, they had more power, so they could be considered the rich. So that relates to even those times and even times right now. People are empowered and others are not empowered. And we see that. That's why you have that's why you have situations like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and so many others. And it's sad and just disheartening. So there's a lot of hypocrisy with this holiday itself. And another thing that shows just the difference of how people are seen in this country, we have to think about Juneteenth just passed. Juneteenth is the celebration of when the last slaves in Texas got the word that they were free in 1865. Keep in mind, 1865. The Declaration of Independence was 1776. That's a big gap. And 1865 is over 2 years of when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln, freeing the slaves. So in over 2 years, there were still people in slavery when it was outlawed. What does that say about us as a people? That shows that we don't care, and that shows we didn't have love for each other like we're supposed to have. So just think about that. Black folks weren't free until 1863, even though the Declaration of Independence happened a century earlier, and then it took over 2 years for the last slaves to hear about it. It's crazy. And it's just crazy to think how, me being a mixed heritage, my mom's ancestors were celebrating and barbecuing and having a good old time back in the earliest 4th of July celebrations. And then while my father's ancestors were getting up, fearing the whip and being put to slave labor and enduring atrocities. The same day, all because of the color of their skin and the status that they were born into. That's not right. And the great Frederick Douglass even said in his famous speech, I'm scrolling on my tablet. What to the slave is the 4th of July? He said, I say it in a sad sense of disparity between us. I'm not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. So that illustrates the point I just made. 4th of July was only meant for a certain group of people, while everybody else, whether it's women or minorities, particularly minorities, African Americans, it meant something different. It meant you guys are on the outside, y'all don't get the same privileges, y'all don't get the same rights, y'all don't get to be seen the same in this country. Just because it's written down, liberty and justice for all, that's not what it means. And my next point is, you might say things are a lot better now, and they are. There are laws, there's Civil Rights Act, segregation is outlawed, but the world, this country is in a state of exposure right now. That's why you're seeing all these people going off saying the N-word, people not getting arrested for committing murder of innocent people. Like the people that murdered Breonna Taylor still basically at large and not arrested yet. All the cops that did that to her. It just, actions speak louder than words. So you have all this stuff going on, and a lot of people think in the same way that that their ancestors have been thinking for years. Everything's okay in their little bubble. Everything's okay as long as it's not happening to me. Well, it's not okay. And a lot of these white people that claim to be Christian, and a lot of even black folks claim to be Christian, like us as a whole, if you claim to be Christian and you're not heartbroken, you're not upset, you're not angry in some way of all this injustice going on, whether it's people getting locked up in cages by the border, whether it's people being killed by being stereotyped by police officers, or getting killed by civilians, or people getting treated unequally by their gender. As a Christian, you should be outraged. Because it's our job to love each other like God loves us. Period. That's it. The Bible even says, I'm about to hit y'all with this. The Bible even says, whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God, whom they have not seen. This is 1 John 4, verse 20. This means if you claim to love God and be a Christian, you have to love everybody. You can't see them as they're lower than you. You got to recognize what they're going through, because one of the prerequisites to love, you have to care. And there's a lot of people that don't care. And I see that in a lot of Trump supporters. Yeah, I said it. Like, everything is all hunky-dory to them, and then when you present them with, facts that affect people that aren't white and from a certain demographic age, they don't care. And even from non-Trump supporters, I see that. Like, I've dealt with this with friends, and I even dated this one girl where she thought Colin Kaepernick was disrespectful when he was protesting and kneeling during the national anthem. She thought it was disrespectful to the vets. When a special forces vet told him to kneel and said to sit down, and that would show respect while protesting against police brutality against minorities. And that's what we're seeing today. So my thing is like, if you really call yourself a Christian, and if you really think that, things aren't bad, you need a reality check. You need to look deep within yourself and ask yourself some hard questions. Like, I don't have to understand, but I have to care enough to realize that things are different for other people because of the hypocrisy that our nation is founded upon. They have good intentions at first, but it's not equal yet. And as soon as we realize that not all of us are free, or not all of us are privileged, or not all of us are safe all the time, then we can never be free. Because we're either in a bubble up here, or we're in an actual physical bubble fearing for our life every day, especially if you're a minority, right, in this country in some situations. It's crazy. Like, and I'm not just saying this to bash white people, but just because you haven't had to live through certain situations or live in fear of getting pulled over or going into the wrong part of town at night, doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Doesn't mean that it isn't a thing. So have the compassion and the level of caring to be like, all right, what can I do? How can I change so I can help my fellow brothers and sisters live better, like without fear, like I do? And the Bible even talks about that as well. Talks about it in Proverbs. Excuse me. Let me find this. Okay, Proverbs 31. So if you're a so-called Christian and you don't care about how other people have to go through stuff just because they don't look like you and they weren't born where you were born at, I'm about to hit y'all with something. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. And in this case, it could be poor represented. It could be in a poor state situation. They could be poor financially. It doesn't matter. There are people that is not as fortunate as you, but you have to stand up as a Christian. It tells you right there. You have to speak up, at least, and stand up for your brothers and sisters that don't have it as good as you do right now. That's it. That's it. If you talk it, you gotta walk it. Because I'm so sick and tired of hearing people that don't care about what other people are going through because they don't have to live it. Yeah, you might be good, but that doesn't mean you should be ignorant and closed-minded off to, the atrocities people face and the fear that people have to live in each and every day. Especially if you call yourself a so-called Christian. Like, you gotta ask yourself, everybody gotta ask themselves in the mirror, do I care enough to realize that stuff is wrong? And do I care enough to speak up about it? Do my research, find ways that I can help out. Because that goes a long, long way. Don't repeat the mistakes of your grandparents or their grandparents all the way back to slavery. Don't repeat that, y'all. Don't repeat any of that thought process. Because if we keep living in ignorance to other people, we can never see each other as equals. And therefore, nobody will be set free. Because there can be no justice and liberty for all if we're not all on the same page. And that's what the Bible does for us. That's what Jesus does for us. So we got to get back to the word and loving each other, because that's why we're in this right now. Because hypocrisy comes from instability, and we need to get back stable. All right, y'all. Peace.